Middlesex snatched defeat from the jaws of victory to slip to their second NatWest T20 Blast defeat in the space of 24 hours, going down by 4 runs against Glamorgan in Cardiff in spite of David Milan's 54-ball 70. Glamorgan batted first after winning the toss but had to wait until the 5th over for their first boundary of the night. 2 more followed in the next one from Toby Rowland-Jones, but a score of 41 without loss off the first 6 overs of power play represented another rather good start for Middlesex with the ball. The one thing the Welshmen had in their favour was that they hadn't lost a wicket, and that gave them the opportunity to push the total along even with the field restrictions lifted. That they did when Nathan Souter was brought into the attack in the 8th over. Jacques Rudolph saw his chance and 3 times in 3 balls he reverse swept the leg spinner for 4s. The over cost 19 runs and a poor start was suddenly being turned into a more than decent one by Rudolph and his opening partner Craig Macheda. After 9 overs, 82 runs were on the board, but to the first ball of the 10th, Macheda was stumped off Neil Dexter after making 33. James Franklin then removed Colin Ingram in the next over. Owen Morgan with the catch before Glamorgan brought up their 100 in over number 12, just after Rudolph had secured his 50 off 33 balls. He was out in over number 14 for 60, a skyer off Dexter being held by Kyle Abbott, who was back in the side after missing the loss at Hampshire on the previous evening. Ben Wright was then bowled by a full ball from Stephen Finn, who produced the excellent figures of 2 for 24 from his 4 overs, while Dexter did even better with 2 for 22 from his allotment. Finn's second wicket was the one of Graham Wagg, Morgan with his second catch of the night, and that left the home team struggling a bit on 144 for 5 with just a couple of overs left. Only 5 runs were scored off the penultimate one from Abbott, whose 4 overs cost just 20, but Rowland-Jones was then struck for 2 sixes in successive balls, the first and only maximums of the innings. Chris Cook was the man to clear the rope by blasting 39 off 24 balls, and thanks to him, Glamorgan ended up with a total of 169 for 5 from their 20 overs. That didn't look as if it was going to be enough, especially when Milan began his innings so brightly. He took South African Wayne Parnell for 3 4s off his first over, the second of the innings, before Nick Compton smashed Michael Hogan for another 3 boundaries in the next one. It was a very brisk stand from these two, who quickly appeared to be putting their side back on winning ways. After only 3 overs, 28 runs had already been knocked off. But then Compton was bowled by Parnell, Rudolph's decision to keep his fellow countryman on paying dividends. Compton was gone for 16. In came Joe Burns and he launched into Macheda, the man on loan from Somerset, this shot heading into the distance. Milan didn't need to clear the rope to keep his score ticking over. He played some delightful strokes, as he so often does, making full use of the power play overs, by the end of which Middlesex already had 60 runs on the board and now required only 110 from 14. It was all going along rather nicely for the visitors. Even more so when Burns went big again off Andrew Salter. The young spinner watching the first 2 deliveries he bowled in the match both travel out of the ground and into the River Taff. Burns raced to 21 off his first 9 balls as 14 came off the over to put Middlesex in charge. However, Salter had ended the over by bowling Burns, Middlesex on 74 for 2 and still looking to be the big favourites to win for a 3rd time from 5 in this competition this summer. Morgan was soon finding the boundary when he came in, and now the target was down to 79 off the last 10 overs. It was all going Middlesex's way, with Milan dropped twice on 47, and that allowed him to reach a 50 off 36 balls with 9 4s. But then 3 overs passed by without a boundary, and the pressure just began to build a little. So 62 were wanted off 42 balls when Morgan was bowled by Dean Koska. But that didn't seem to matter too much as John Simpson came in and struck the second ball he faced for 6, with Milan adding his 10th boundary in the same over. 48 were now required off 36 balls with 7 wickets in hand. But 1 over from Macheda began to change things. He finally got rid of Milan for a 54-ball 70. Another fine innings, although he would have been annoyed not to see the job through. Then Dexter followed 2 balls later for a couple as he found Cook, and now 28 were needed off the last 18 balls, and Glamorgan sensed that they were back in this game. Whereas Middlesex's last few overs cost plenty, Wagg and Hogan now both delivered excellent ones, with just this one boundary coming off them, and in the end that left 13 to find off the final over, and that proved to be just too much. So Middlesex fell just a handful of runs short, ending on 165 for 5, in spite of Simpson's jolly 31 off 17. 9 off 9 for Franklin at the death was just not enough, as the visitors lost by 4 runs. They will want to get back to winning ways when they next take on Gloucestershire in Richmond a week on Sunday.